All right, guys, let's get this out of the way. Skip the introduction today and go straight into complaining about Alabama because I haven't had a chance to do that yet. It's Wednesday right now, and yeah, so let's get going. So, game came down to a game-ending field goal that I watched while crying, and it was a first loss against an unranked opponent. Alabama's first loss and Nick Saban's first loss since an unranked opponent since 2007. And it also marked Nick Saban's first loss against a former assistant, which was bound to happen at one point, but didn't think it would be Jimbo. And, without trying to overreact here, I just want everybody fired. I want all of them gone. But maybe not all of them, but definitely Pete Goulding and probably Bill O'Brien too. Because, I've never seen a more average performance out of our defense. We came out flat the entire first half. Nobody knew what they were doing, what was going on. Second half was a little bit better, but ultimately we just got way too far down in the first half. And at the end of the first half, it was 24-10. And it's hard to come back from a 2-touchdown, deficit at halftime, especially when the other team is out there playing like they want to be there. Alabama at times did not look like they wanted to be there, but regardless, Pete Goulding should have been left in College Station, 100%. Well, why? Well, Zach Calzada. I apologize for mispronouncing his name if I did. Zach Calzada. But to preface this, and I'm not going to try to take anything away from the kid here. I mean, he had a great game, and he was probably the reason that A&M ultimately won the game. But having said that, before this game, the kid had a total of 5 passing touchdowns in the entire year, 4 of those which came against New Mexico State. And I mean, it's if you've been a Bama fan for a long time, like I have, then this is kind of typical. I mean, it just happens at times. I don't understand it, but it's where these average quarterbacks have incredible and extraordinary games against us. Steven Garcia has entered the chat. But I mean, it happens. It's part of it. It's part of football, and I mean, baseball's on my mind because the Braves won last night. But it's part of football. I mean, it's regardless. It shouldn't have came down to that. I don't understand how Mississippi State and Arkansas can both shut this guy out, but Pete Goulding can't. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I really don't get it. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, here's the thing. Arkansas beat them. Mississippi State beat them. And we could not. So there's a couple questions here that I want answered. One, how long has Texas A&M been preparing for this game? Because, I mean, if you remember back to Jimbo quoting in, I think it was May around sometime, he said, we're going to kick Nick Saban's ass this year. And lo and behold, he did. So, but here's my thing though, is you had your star quarterback go down at the beginning of the season. And then you had to start relying on this Zach Calzada kid who really has not been that great. He's lost 2 games, 2 of those to, like I said, Mississippi State and Arkansas. But I think it was just a combo of Texas A&M being ultra prepared, and on the other side of the ball, Pete Goulding didn't know what was going on. I mean, Texas A&M came out and punched us in the mouth, and we never recovered. So moving forward, I don't know. I really don't know how we fix this. I think we have to take a serious look at the play calling on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, which, by the way, I haven't forgotten Bill O'Brien here in a second. But it's just, I mean, I don't get it. Our defense has looked like this all year. There's been times where it has looked completely vulnerable, like down the stretch against Florida, or at times against Ole Miss, or largely the entire game against A&M, at least the first 3 quarters. But and it's just, something's got to change here. I don't know what it is, but something's got to change. I don't know if Nick Saban grabs Pete Goulding up and says, look, I'm taking over, I'm calling the plays, you just make sure everybody's in the position to be able to win. Now, is that something that happens? Probably not. But Pete Goulding's got to change something here, or else he's going to be gone. I mean, we can't play like this against Auburn. We can't play like this against Georgia for damn sure. And you can't play like this once you get to the playoffs. Like if we're going to go out and we're going to get down 24-10 in the playoffs, it's not going to work. I mean, it's just not. But back to Bill O'Brien here. Let's not forget about him. He was an idiot in this game too. And in my notes I said that this part's going to be shorter, but it actually is. It's probably not going to be shorter here. And I want to say a few things. We had 6 trips to the red zone and scored on 2 of them. We had 17 plays total in the red zone. 10 plays of those 17 plays were in the 5-yard line. So 10 of those plays within the 5-yard line, 8 of them were passes, 3 of them being in a row. I don't understand the play calling here. You have, from the 5-yard line, here's what we did. Actually, let me take it a further step back here to the first half. So first half, again, we were, around the 5-yard line, 3 or 4-yard line, 3 to 5, something like that, right? So what did we do? Well, let's see. We gave the ball to Brian Robinson. He carried the ball for 2 yards. Got the ball on the 3-yard line. Next play, Brian Robinson got another yard. Got the ball on the 2-yard line. Next play, pass. Bryce Young interception. Bryce Young interception at the 1-yard line. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like this is Bryce Young's fault, because it's not. It's poor play calling. You have Brian Robinson, who ultimately went for 24 carries for 147 yards. I mean, the guy was averaging over 6 yards a carry largely the entire game. You have the ball on the 2-yard line. The 2 previous plays, you just got positive yardage on. Someone explain this to me. I don't get it. And it's a problem. It's a problem that's been plaguing the NFL and college football for like a while now. I mean, it all started back in the Superbowl a few years ago with the Seahawks and the Patriots, where, y'all remember this, the Seahawks had the ball on the 1-yard line with Marshawn Lynch on their team, who, again, may not have been having an incredible game quite like Brian Robinson, but it's Marshawn Lynch. And then they passed it. And what happened? Malcolm Butler intercepted it in the end zone. Patriots ended up winning that game. So Bryce throws an interception in the 2-yard line. Cool. Not great since we're down at that point, but we're moving on, right? So again, later on in the game, pivotal point in the game, very pivotal point in the game. We are down 31-27. And it's 1st and goal from the 3-yard line. 3-yard line this time. Not even the 5-yard line, the 3-yard line. So what do? You'd think, oh man, Brian Robinson, 6 yards a carry this game. Let's throw him in there once or twice. Let's see what he's got. Let's see, he can get 3 yards, right? I mean, hell, you can fall forward and get 2 yards. But no. What happened? Screen pass to Mechie, 1-yard loss. Pass to Billingsley, incomplete. Pass to Bolden, incomplete. And I don't know if Bill Bryan thought he was fooling everybody here, but I mean, it's obvious he wasn't. And like I said, it's been plaguing football for a long time, and I just truly don't understand it. I don't understand when you go all the way down the field to the 3-yard line or even the 5-yard line. But if you're within the 5-yard line and you have a stud running back on your team, run the ball. I'm going to quote Devontae Smith here after the game, after that 3-and-out. Well, we ended up getting a field goal on it. We should have been a touchdown. But I'm going to quote Devontae Smith here. Run the damn ball. Run the damn ball. It is not hard. You have a stud running back and a very good rush offense who, like I said, has been killing it the entire game. Brian Robinson had 150 yards in this game. But no, let's pass it 3 times in a row. Let's pass it. Let's just try to throw him off guard. We did it in the first half. Let's do it again. Let's do it again in the second half. Maybe it'll throw him off this time. It didn't work the first time, but this time, guarantee you that it'll work this time. Nick Saban says, all right, Bill, whatever. Go ahead and do it. I mean, you guys saw what happened. And it's just sad. I'm sad. Alabama fans don't take losing very well. This is our first loss in 19 games, I believe. I know it's been since 2019 at least. We don't lose, especially against unranked opponents. That hasn't happened in, since my freshman year of high school. So 14 years ago. I mean, it's just, I don't get it. I mean, it's the same problems that have beaten us every time. It's a quarterback that comes in, has an incredible game, whether it's Steven Garcia or this Caldaza kid, Johnny Manziel, who, I mean, he did have incredible games typically, but both Ole Miss quarterbacks from 2014 and 2015 that beat us. I mean, it's just, when are we going to fix this? You know, I mean, it just seems at this point like we would stop making the same mistakes. But I maybe I'm wrong. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm not a coach. But I think the reason I'm mad the most about this is this game should have been a game that Alabama won. I mean, our defense outperformed A&M's by a large margin. I think Alabama had a total of it was like 500 something yards as opposed to A&M's like 375 yards, somewhere around there. We had more first downs. We had like 10 minutes more of time of possession. And we still lost. But ultimately, it wasn't the players' fault here. I mean, you can't fault the players for this game at all. The players played great. The players did the best that they could. But it was poor and unprepared coaching that lost this game for us. Now, all that being said, Alabama's been through this before. They've won a few national championships with one loss. Hopefully this wakes them up. And if it does wake them up, watch out, because this team's going to be scary again. Because these teams do not like losing. These teams are not accustomed to losing. When they do, usually they wake up. But, all right, now that we got that out of our system, that'll probably be my rant section for this episode. But moving along, we'll make our reviews of everybody else a little bit shorter today because, you know, that prior piece took a little bit of time to get out of my system. But I did play some bets last weekend that I forgot to tell you guys about. I did not end up doing a podcast late last week. I ended up having to work, wasn't able to fill it. But regardless, what kind of degenerate would I be if I didn't place bets last week? So I did, obviously, because I'm a degenerate like one of you. But anyway, here's how it went. So I didn't do poorly. You know, I didn't do great. But I picked some games last week, and I went 4-3, and I pushed on one game, and that was the Michigan game -3. Michigan did end up beating Nebraska by 3. We'll get to that a little bit later. But here's the winners. The winners last week for me personally, I won on UCLA, UCLA -16, Iowa -2.5, Florida State +17.5. Oh, and I won the Oklahoma money line. Now, that game was incredible. We'll get to that in a second, too. The losers were Alabama, Auburn, and West Virginia, +1.5. That one wasn't. All three of those weren't even close. You had Bama at -18. That obviously didn't happen. You had Auburn at +15. They couldn't even make it a game. And you had West Virginia, who also could not make it a game and got squashed by Baylor, who looks pretty good this year. But anyway, what a weekend. What a weekend for college football, guys. I mean, it was incredible. The most points ever scored in the Red River rivalry. Alabama went down on a game-winning field goal. You had a shootout between Ole Miss and Arkansas that ended up ending off of a missed 2-point conversion in overtime. That was insane, by the way, if you guys watched that one. Not to mention, you had Michigan by 3, Iowa State by 3, and there was just nail-biters and drama everywhere. Give me all of the drama. Inject it into my veins. I love all of this. It was so much fun to watch football last weekend, NFL and college. It was just such a great weekend, and we've had more good weekends than not. I mean, really, there was one weekend where like not a whole lot really happened and everybody lost all their bets. But other than that, it's been a great year for college football. I mean, like I said, it was everywhere. 55-48 in the Red River rivalry. That is so hard to say. Bijan Robinson looked incredible. Spencer Rattler looked like trash. Spencer Rattler has an attitude problem. Get this guy out of here. We'll get to that a little bit later. Iowa beat Penn State by 3 in dramatic fashion because Penn State was filled with injuries, quote unquote. at the end of the game. Now, was that strategic? Was it not? I don't know. Iowa's coach actually commented on it. To me, myself, I'm not going to comment on it. I wasn't there. Hard for me to say either way if they weren't or they weren't. I like to believe that they were not faking injuries, but it was a close game. Time was running out. If you're going to do it, that's the time to do it. That's all I'm going to say about it. But Notre Dame also squeaked out a 3-point win as well against Virginia Tech. And that was at the end of the game too. So obviously our power rankings have changed a little bit. They've changed a good bit, actually. You can see them on the screen right now. Or if you're listening, you can head over to our Instagram at Rant on Sports, pull it up, see what you think. Agree with us, disagree with us, let us know. Comment, like it, like the page, whatever you want to do. But here's the thing, guys. All these games happened, right? And I still think Alabama has a pretty good chance of making the playoffs. I mean, especially if they win out. By the way, so I don't know if you guys remember this, but last week we talked about a couple scenarios. That was our rant section. It was called SEC scenarios, right? One of those scenarios is still pretty possible. And am I high on it? No, I'm not. Do I want it to happen? Yes. Yes, I do. Because I want chaos. I want total chaos when we get down to the 4 teams that we're picking at the end. And I want the community to be like, what are we doing here? Like, I want them to be confused. I want madness. And here's what I want to happen. So Kentucky's still undefeated after last weekend. And like I said, this is more or less for fun, but if it happens, that would be incredible. So Kentucky, here's the thing. Kentucky can either play this one of 2 ways. Kentucky loses to Georgia in the regular season. They have 1 loss going into the final, couple weeks of the season. Or they beat Georgia somehow, which I don't really think is realistic. Georgia right now is far and beyond the best team in the country, and I really don't even think it's close. But just hypothetically for fun here. Let's say Kentucky does happen to beat Georgia. Georgia has an off day. Kentucky goes undefeated, plays in the SEC championship, loses to Alabama. So now at this point, you would have Alabama, SEC champions, 1 loss. Kentucky, SEC championship losers, 1 loss. And Georgia, 1 loss to the people that were in the SEC championship. Now it gets a little interesting because how do you not put all 3 in? I mean, I know right now you've got Cincinnati undefeated and you've got Iowa undefeated and you got Oklahoma undefeated, right? But at the end of the season, the body of work for a team like Kentucky or a team like Georgia or Alabama is probably going to be a much more impressive body of work than an undefeated Cincinnati, whose best win was a subpar, well, we'll say average Notre Dame team this year, who just happened to be ranked really high at the time. Now, like I said, who knows? I mean, I don't know if this will happen. I doubt it will, but if it does, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. So I'm hoping and praying for that, guys, because I really want that to happen. I want total chaos when it comes to picking these teams. But on a serious note, though, the front runners are definitely Georgia and Iowa after last week. At this point, I mean, you got to throw Oklahoma and Cincinnati in there, with Alabama probably looking in at number 5. So excluding Alabama, I'm all in on Iowa here because obviously Georgia's Georgia, and we know what they're capable of. But I'm all in on Iowa because I want something different out of the Big Ten. I'm tired of seeing Ohio State win it every year. I'm tired of seeing Ohio State having 0 competition in the conference. Now this year, Michigan and Iowa, or at least make it look like Ohio State might have some competition. So that's nice. But will it be enough? Because I hope it is. I really want Iowa to win out. I really want Iowa to go undefeated, and I really want them to be the Big Ten champs because I like this Iowa team a lot. I mean, it's one of the best traditions in sports too. The waving at the hospital, and it's just they're a fun team to watch too. And last week too, they proved to me that they can win big games. I mean, they beat Penn State by 3, who has beaten Auburn and a couple other people this year that, in my mind, makes Penn State a pretty good team. So I think it's an impressive win for Iowa. They stuck it out. They won. And if they can, kind of hold on to that mantra of just, hold on, you survive in advance, really, then I think that they'll have a chance. Maybe not to win it all, but I want them in the college playoffs because I really like this team so far. Um, and like I said, I'm tired of Ohio State winning the Big Ten. I mean, at least Alabama gives other people a chance to win it every now and then, 2017 and 2019. But I like Cincinnati this too. But part of me just thinks that they are the Notre Dame. Speaking of them, they are the Notre Dame of the playoffs this year. Regardless of who it is, regardless of who they play, whether it's Georgia, Alabama, or Oklahoma, I'm sorry, but I just don't really think it matters. I think Cincinnati gets squashed by all three of those teams. I have a feeling it won't end well unless, Oklahoma hypothetically left Spencer Rattler in for this hypothetical game. Then they might have a chance because you can get in his head pretty easily. I mean, dude just sucks and he needs to go kick rocks. I mean, he's got some sort of attitude problem. And like you saw it last week, he threw an interception that was clearly his fault. And what's the first thing he does is he starts yelling at his teammates. Like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You should have been over here, or you should have been over here. That wasn't the play I called. Hey, man, you're the quarterback. You're the captain of the offense. If something didn't go the right way, it's your fault. Especially when you overthrow a receiver by 10 yards into another guy's hands. Like, I don't understand. This guy needs to be out, though. I mean, you're not going to win with him. I would hate playing with the guy if I played for Oklahoma, and it's hard for me to believe that people like that. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that people enjoy him not taking responsibility for his actions. That's not what a leader does. That's quite literally the opposite. But moving on, that attitude's not going to cut it in the NFL. But okay, moving on. Speaking of someone who was throwing away the Heisman, though, let's talk about some Heisman favorites here. So after last weekend, obviously, I still think the favorites have still got to be Bryce Young and Matt Corral, right? I mean, let's compare the numbers here. Bryce last week had 370 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. So still pretty good numbers, even in a loss. So that brings his total on the year, though, to a little bit over 1,700 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. That's not very many. That's a pretty good ratio. And to compare, Corral has just under 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, and no interceptions. But that goes along with 250 rushing yards and 8 more touchdowns. So the guys are tied with touchdowns. It's just a cumulative thing with Corral and a passing thing with Bryce. But regardless, so those guys are obviously the two front runners right now. I think even Vegas has both of those guys at the top of the list. But if you're going to look at a dark horse here, I think you got 2 guys. I mean, well, not really even a dark horse, even in Bijan Robinson, because that kid's incredible. I mean, you've seen what he's done this week. You saw what he did last week against Oklahoma. The kid is on fire. He looks great every week. And I think it'd be really hard not to invite him to New York at the end of the year. But if I had to pick a fourth, Kenneth Walker. I really like Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. They are undefeated, actually. Michigan State is up to, I think, the 12th-ish ranked team, something like that right now. And this kid has been killing it with them. So, I mean, keep an eye on this kid. He's having a hell of a year so far. And I think you got to invite him to New York at the end of the year, too, because, I mean, these 4 are the guys here. I think if Bryce wins out, he probably wins Heisman. But let's see if he slips up. Because if he does, it's gonna be wide open. It's gonna for one of these other guys. It's gonna be Bijan or whoever. But I think regardless of the Heisman, I think Bijan and Kenneth Walker are both going to be competing for the Doak Walker Award at the end of the year. And so that's going to be exciting to watch. We'll see. So if you haven't guessed, today is very, very college football heavy. And I apologize for that, but it was just such a big weekend last weekend that I got so excited. And I had to cover all of it, mainly the Alabama game. But it's just the most exciting thing in the world to watch if you've got a team, And speaking of exciting sports, though, NHL is back. NHL started this week. I think the first game was actually yesterday. Now, how cool is the Seattle Kraken logo and their jerseys? I mean, wow, that looked cool. So I might be having to add one of those to the collection. But uh, so first time since speaking of hockey being back on, so first time since 2004, it's on ESPN now, which is very exciting. It's like I said, when I was 14, I was 11, so I don't really remember really even the ESPN being or the NHL being on ESPN. It's been a while for me, and so that's exciting. I think a lot of people are going to watch it this year. Viewership is going to be up this year, and it's going to be a lot more fun to watch. And so, speaking of that, our contributor Jordy will actually be giving his take on the preseason games, and he's going to be giving us a little bit of an outlook on how he thinks the season's going to go. He is our hockey expert. And guys, go ahead and go over to our Substack and subscribe to it. It's just rantonpodcast.substack.com. That article will be out very soon, within the week probably. And also, so I'm very close to releasing the website. I know I've been saying that for weeks, but I spent hours on it over the weekend, and I've got all the content on there now. I just need to make it look pretty. So I will probably be calling my sister and letting her do it because she's just much better than I am at it. But anyway, so that's exciting because before too long, we're just going to have everything on the website. We're going to have the podcast on the website. We're going to have the blog on the website. And we're even going to have the new store that opened up on the website. By the way, if you haven't seen the store, go check it out. You can go to bonfire.com /rant-on-market. And we got some cool things on there, guys. And if you want to check it out, that's cool. All the profits go towards the show. It goes to better equipment or better software. A lot of subscriptions that I have to use for this, for getting the website up and going and whatnot. But that's exciting. We got exciting stuff here moving on. And another just so many exciting things here. Well, so I also am going to have an NBA guy come in here. We'll also be adding a new contributor to the NBA as the season gets closer. We got preseason going on right now. Who are your favorite teams? Shout us out. Let us know on Twitter, Instagram, wherever. I don't care. Wherever. And before too long, we'll even be able to go to the website and you can send us a message on there too. So that's cool. But anyway, guys, we're going to have some NBA and NHL talk soon. It's just before college football is over. I don't know. We'll see. Well, maybe. But it's just so much fun. College football is just so much fun. But anyway, moving along. Moving along to the NFL. It was an interesting weekend. It was injury plagued, and there were missed kicks everywhere. It was a strange week, and that about summed up the whole weekend. I mean, there were just multitudes of missed field goals, and even I don't know if you guys watched the Green Bay Cincinnati game, but there were I think there were 4 missed field goals in the final 3 minutes and overtime of the game. 4. It's crazy. It was so exciting. But anyway, I keep losing my place on my script here, so I apologize. But by the way, so to add to the drama after the weekend, you had the whole John Gruden thing come out. And while I don't want to really comment or say a whole lot about the situation, I do have one question. And how did we not know about this earlier? Because all of this was happening in, from the span of 2012 or 2010 to 2012. And if I read everything correctly, he was conversing with NFL owners at the time about other people, right? So my question is, why didn't this come out earlier? I mean, it took 10 years. Just seems like while he said some things that he should not have said that were very insensitive towards a lot of different people, I do think that he is taking the brunt of most of this, when it might be time to take a serious look at the owners as well. I mean, people have said this for a long time. They kind of act like a mafia. I mean, we've had these situations before where all of these owners have known about these things in the past, and they've just gotten to a point now of heightened celebritism that they think of themselves as untouchable. And while they may be, we got to figure something out to fix that, because it's not only ruining players, I mean, it's ruining whole careers. So, and what I mean by that is all of these owners, whether, I mean, it's like the whole Colin Kaepernick thing too. Colin Kaepernick, I mean, he was very vocal about it, what he was going to do. I mean, Colin Kaepernick let us know that, yeah, I'm doing this, and I'm going to be doing this moving forward. And regardless of if you agree with it or don't agree with it, the fact of the matter is that the owners decided that they were going to do whatever they wanted to do regardless. They don't want Kaepernick on a team. All right, well, he's gone. We're going to blackball him. They don't want Deshaun Watson on a team. All right, well, we're going to make up a bunch of different sexual allegations against him, all from the same lawyer. And if he's not going to play here, he's not going to play anywhere. So let's take a look at the owners. Let's take a look at what they have hidden, because we're going to come out with some nasty stuff if we start figuring that out. Because I think these guys have a lot of skeletons hanging in their closet, and I think that they are scared of people finding them out. That's why in this case, now John Gruden did say some bad stuff, but John Gruden is it's almost as if he's the scapegoat for this. I mean, they have to have somebody to blame, so they're blaming it on him. And while he does deserve a large portion of the blame, the owners kind of allowed all this to happen. The owners allowed these conversations to take place. I mean, if you look at all of everything bad that's happened in the NFL over the last 10 to 15 years, it goes back to the owners, or the commissioner, even Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell probably got his panties in a wad because John Gruden said some of those mean things about him. Now, is he a little bit sensitive? Yeah, I think Goodell is a little sensitive. But at the same time, you can't do what John Gruden did and not expect to get fired. I mean, but at the end of the day, guys, the NFL has allowed domestic abusers. They have allowed drug addicts. They have allowed a multitude of different arrays of bad things to happen and continue to happen in the NFL. Have we seen any changes? No, not really. Sure, we'll suspend you for a few games for weed, but or for domestic violence, but and sure, we'll probably end your career over some weed. But when it comes to stuff like this, NFL wipes their hands clean and they say, this wasn't us. We had no part of this. When in reality, they made this environment possible. It's their doing. It's ultimately their fault. But that's all I wanted to say about the whole Gruden thing. One of these weeks, I'm going to focus more on the NFL than college, but we're running out of time today, so I'll just be saying a few things about the rest of the NFL and the games. Speaking of the Raiders, I do think I have to change my opinion on them winning their division. I know I said it earlier in the year, and without a coach, I just don't think it's going to happen. Not to mention the Bears, of all teams, shut them down last weekend and held them to 9. And so my new pick for that division is the Chargers. So Justin Herbert looks great. Austin Eckler looks great. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, the entire offense looks incredible. And even the defensive side of things looks great too. I mean, Joey Bosa is it Nick or is it Joey? I don't know. One of the Bosa brothers. I always forget or get them mixed up. One of the Bosa brothers is having a hell of a year too. I mean, he's probably one of the leaders on this defense. And this defense is playing out of their minds as well. And if they can keep this up, then they might make a run in the playoffs. I don't know if they'll win it. I mean, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat the Bills this year, but I do think that the Chargers look pretty good. Now, let's move on to the AFC South. AFC South is still far and beyond the worst conference in the NFL. All of them lost except for the Titans, and the only reason that they won is because they played the Jaguars. So somebody in the conference had to win. Somebody did. I will say this, though. If there's one positive about the Jaguars this weekend, it's that Trevor Lawrence looks like he's kind of improving. I mean, he's consistently looked better from week to week, and he looked pretty good in the first half of this game. Now, we didn't do anything in the second half, and we ended up losing 37-19. But whatever, whatever. They had Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry always destroys us. Derrick Henry is unstoppable. Can't stop him. Can't blame him there, right? So, whatever. And Robinson looks pretty good too. I mean, he's like the one bright spot on the offense that the Jaguars have, but whatever. By the way, speaking of my guy, Blake Bortles, I saw this yesterday. Officially practicing for the Seattle Seahawks, or not practicing, but trying out for him. So is it Blake Bortles season, baby? It might be. Bring back the boat. I want to see him. I am prepared to be a Seahawks fan this year. I am prepared to leave the Jaguars to go root on my favorite Jaguar of all time in Blake Bortles. But we'll see. We'll see if that happens. I hope he makes it. I love the guy. Okay. Like I said, Bills might win it all this year earlier, right? This team looks better than any other team that I've seen in a long time. And if they do make it, it'd be fun if they can. It'd be fun if they could see if they could break the curse of the early 90s. They went from 90 to 94 and lost every single one of them. And to my knowledge, haven't been back to the Super Bowl since then. And I want them to break the curse. I love it when people break curses. I love it. I loved it when the Cubs broke their curse. I loved it when the Red Sox broke their curse in 2004. Now it's the Bills' time. The Bills curse hasn't been going on quite as long as, the Cubs or the Red Sox, but it's a curse nonetheless, and I want to see it broken. I want the Bills to win because I like the Bills. And I mean, actually, let me take it back here a second. So I said the Bills would probably win, but I got to take this. I got to throw this in here. You can't count out Brady. I mean, Brady's putting up video game numbers. He had over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns last week in one game. Tom Brady has never done that in his career before in his entire life, but he's doing it now at the age of 42 or 43, 41, whatever he is. So he's putting up video game numbers now. Whatever. And it's just been a lot of fun to watch. I hated Brady when he was in New England. I love Brady now. I don't know what changed. I think it was the toxic environment in Boston. But I like him now. I like half retired Tampa chill Brady. I like the Brady that goes at everybody and says, because he used to not say anything in interviews. Like he would used to be just Bill Belichick. He would never cause problems, but now he's a little on the offensive now, and I kind of like it. But speaking of video game numbers, though, I'm convinced Lamar Jackson is just not a real person. Like, he's a robot. He's an alien. I don't know. But down 19 at one point in the game and 22-9 going into the fourth quarter, Lamar threw for 335 yards in the second half. In the second half, threw for 335 yards to beat the Colts. Again, AFC or AFC South. And with over 60 rushing yards, he accounted for 500 yards or over 500 yards total in the entire game. I really don't even think I've done that in a video game, to be quite honest. I think when I play a video game, if I make a player, I make him like Lamar. I want a mobile quarterback, but I'm usually aiming for about 300 yards passing and 100 yards rushing a game, right? And and that's pretty good video game numbers. Like it's quite literally the term video game numbers, because you're not supposed to be able to do that in real life. But Lamar put up 500 total yards in one game. I mean, I don't know. What do you say about that? Just give the guy the MVP again. Because last year, or when he won the MVP, I didn't really like it because the guy had like under 3,000 passing yards. But if you're going to have a game where you throw for 450 passing yards, rush for 60 more, and have a few touchdowns in there sprinkled in, you can't give it to anybody else. Who else is going to do that? Nobody. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. But anyway, this is the last thing I'll talk about this week, NFL-wise anyway. And I just want to say, the best thing ever created, maybe since sliced bread. And this is not an exaggeration. And I feel like people say that a lot to over-exaggerate things. But this is not an exaggeration, because NFL Red Zone is quite literally one of the best creations of our time, of any time, of all time even. And let me just let me paint a picture for you. I am sitting right here in my recliner, lounged up, just watching the games, fully prepared to sit here for 12 to 15 hours today, mainly because there was a London kickoff, and in Central Time, I had football on at 8:30 in the morning. You guys ever woken up, turned on football, and not moved for the rest of the day? Because it's incredible. I mean, it's just the best thing in the world. Uh, it, like I said, I didn't move, but at one point we were going quad box. Quad box. That means we had 4 games on one box, and all 4 of them went down to the final seconds. Three of them literally were a field goal within 2 minutes of each other. Like, field goal into that game. Next game, field goal into that game to win it. Next game, field goal into that game to win it. And then the next game, you had like 2 minutes left, but ultimately field goal to win it. And it was just the coolest 10 minutes of my entire life, probably. It was incredible. I mean, and it's like I said, I love this time of the year. It's my favorite time of the year, mainly because you can wake up on Sunday, you set the old fantasy lineup, even though this year I'm playing like trash and I have 1 win collectively over three fantasy teams, and it's not a good year. But regardless, you set it. If you're good, you have fun doing that. After that, you put on some comfy clothes, you go put on some joggers, get you a nice, well, maybe not yet, but in maybe another month or so, you'll get you a nice sweatshirt to put on, nice comfy sweatshirt. And, you might make yourself some Rotel dip, and it's like 3 ingredients. It's not hard. It's Velveeta, and then the little Rotel can, and then sausage. That's it. Maybe throw some extra spices in there if you're feeling fancy. And, you throw that on the crock pot, let it cook let it all melt down. And then, by the time you're done doing all that, you get your shower and everything, and you sit down in your recliner. Well, your Rotel dip's ready because you've already, it's 8:30 in the morning, and you started it right after the Jets and the Falcons played in London. So now it's 11:30. Well, now no. Now it's 12:30, and you got all the games going for the day. Settle in, comfy clothes, just eating some Rotel dip. And man, there's just not much better than that this time of the year. And you just settle in, you don't move for solid 8, 10, 12, 14 hours maybe. And but it's just the best time of the year, guys. I mean, I love it. And before too long, we're gonna have football. We've got we have college football. We got NFL this week. NHL starting in a couple weeks. NBA is starting. In a couple more weeks, we'll have Baseball World Series. It's just the best time of the year. You got every major sport, excluding soccer, going on right now. And soccer might be going on. I just don't know enough about it to comment on that. If you do want to read some articles, though, we do have some EPL articles by our contributor Dusty Nickram, and he comes out with those every couple of weeks. He's going to be coming out with one probably next week. And so yeah, if you do like soccer, go check that out. Like I said, it's on Substack, rantonpodcast.substack.com. So that'll about wrap it up for this episode, guys. We're still in the process of making some changes and getting some scheduling down. But we'll be keeping you guys updated on that. I did, like I said, I'm very close to the website, guys. I promise. I know I've been saying that for weeks, but I'm very close to the website. Be sure to go and follow us and like us on social media. I did make a Facebook page. It's at Rant On Podcast, maybe. But anyway, Twitter, yeah. Facebook is /Rant On Podcast, and Twitter and Instagram are both at Rant On Sports. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit subscribe below. I'm gonna get someone to make some final designing touches, like I said, to the website. It'll probably be my sister, but 90% of it is done. So it'll be in the next couple of weeks. We're gonna have everything move over there. It's gonna look super clean, and I'm really excited to share all this with you guys. But anyway, like I said, that'll about do it for this week. And thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.